Hey everyone, and welcome back to this week's Valorant News Roundup. In this series, we break down everything you need to know about Valorant news. This includes balancing changes, leaks, and even new features coming to Valorant in the near future. So if you want to stay in the loop, then be sure to subscribe with notifications on. Today, we will be diving into Morello's most recent livestream and talking about the future agent changes that we will be seeing. And towards the end of the video, we will also be giving you a very simple tip to improve your lineup game. But before we can get into any of that, I want to go ahead and touch more on a topic that we discussed during last week's video, and this is an accidental Reyna Nerf that got added into the game files during the last patch. If you didn't already know, this bug prevented any Reyna players from healing if the soul orb wasn't actually on the screen. This meant that players couldn't heal while getting out of all the action. And on July 15th, Morello answered the big question of whether this was on purpose with this tweet. So as you can see, all of this was indeed a mistake and it should be fixed in the next patch. I just wanted to go ahead and let all of you Reyna players know that you don't need to worry anymore. Now, for what you all clicked on the video for, we have inside information on what you can be expecting regarding agent changes coming straight from Morello. There are 4 agents that are going to be mainly discussed, and here's Morello's basic statement overall covering the topic.
So, characters. Breach needs help. Viper needs a lot of help. Sage is still nuts. Raze is actually looking pretty nasty, but we have some I have some ideas on Raze that I think will be pretty popular. So, no, we're not removing anything.
So we have already really touched on how the developers feel about Breach, but a very interesting agent in this mix is Raze. Morello has already talked in previous streams that Raze is just bound to be deemed overpowered during the early stages of the game due to newer players being predictable, but now the devs want to nerf her. The only part of Raze that the devs currently have a problem with is the ultimate ability. Right now, it just feels like there's no countering the showstopper, and so in the next few patches, we will most likely be seeing a change that gives opponents more time to kill Raze before she can shoot a rocket down their throats. Right now, this is the only part of Raze that the developers have expressed a dislike to, and so we shouldn't be seeing too many other changes besides this one. Now, moving on to our next agent, let's talk about Sage, who has been seeing small nerfs in almost every patch since beta. Riot is trying not to make Sage unplayable, but it looks like they may be planning a much larger nerf because Sage's pick rates and win percentages are still extremely high compared to all the other agents. Many of us, when hearing this, might think that's because of her healing ability, but Morello claims that this isn't the case, or else we would see agents like Phoenix and Reyna experience similar data. Sure, the healing might be a small problem in the lower elos due to bad crosshair placement, but once you find yourself in the higher ranks, the problem evolves into stalling. In Valorant, you only have 1 minute and 40 seconds to plant the spike, and Sage can essentially make this less than a minute when she uses all of her abilities. This is the problem that the devs are now faced with, and only time will tell how they plan to address the issue. One possible fix could be adding a new healer into the mix. Have a quick look at this clip and let us know in the comments how you feel about it.
Sage is nuts. Anybody tells me you don't need to nerf Sage and that it's because she's the only healer, I'm not hearing it these days. I tried to give it a patch, tried to see if it would happen. We'll be releasing another healer. I don't think it'll fix it, and I don't want to wait that long. Even I don't want to wait that long.
So this basically confirms that a new healer will be added into the game. The only question now is when will this happen? Everyone believes that the next agent coming to Valorant is Killjoy, and frankly, this agent doesn't have any healing abilities that we know of. At the end of the clip, Morello did say he didn't want to wait that long, so maybe the last agent for this episode will be a healer. If this is the case, we are still 2.5 months away from that, and this problem needs to be fixed pretty soon. Do you have any ideas on how Sage could be nerfed? Be sure to let us know in the comments down below. The final agent that isn't in a spot that the devs are satisfied with is Viper. It isn't hard to see that Viper isn't a very commonly played agent because in the Valorant T1 tournament, she was only chosen in 1 game. There are a ton of changes that have already been made to Viper, but her ultimate still feels pretty weak, so this is what the devs want to focus on now. They are still in the talks about how they want to buff this, but we will be sure to let you know as soon as we have any more information. When viewers of Morello's stream heard that Viper was going to receive a buff, some of them were pretty surprised. Viper's other abilities are in a pretty good spot, they just take a lot of learning to master. With these abilities, players are able to create one-ways that give them advantages in gunfights. For most agents, the devs are against one-ways, but when it comes to Viper, this is not the case. I'm guessing if the one-ways do get out of hand, then they could get removed, but right now Morello is happy with them because it gives players some sort of incentive to play Viper. This is going to go ahead and wrap up our talk on agents, and now we can go ahead and transition into the meta problems with Valorant. Right when I said the word meta, I bet a ton of you thought of the op, but before we can discuss that, there is one other weapon that can seem pretty overpowered at times. This is the Judge. Overall, this weapon wouldn't really be a problem if the Jet players didn't fly right at you and abuse it, but sadly they are, so expect a price increase coming to this weapon sometime soon. And now, finally, let's talk about ops. I know that a ton of players in the community have recently started to despise this weapon, and luckily for them, we will most likely be seeing some changes. But these changes aren't going to be what many expect. In tactical shooters, the snipers are supposed to be pretty powerful as they cost the most in the game, but there has to be some ways to counter the weapon, and right now in Valorant there aren't many. Operators can freely hold angles, and as soon as players peek, they can shoot and easily pick up kills. We see this problem more in Valorant than in CS because in Counter-Strike, all players are able to carry flashes, whereas in Valorant, this only applies to some agents. The problem right now is that players using these agents aren't able to utilize their abilities to overtake the opper. So there are so many different thoughts that go into nerfing this weapon, and this is why we haven't seen a change already. It is a pretty big problem right now that will hopefully have a solution come a few weeks. One way this meta won't be fixed is by adding another agent. Here's what Morello had to say about this idea.
People ask, is the new agent going to fix X meta issue? Is the next agent going to fix this thing that just popped up that's a problem? Like op meta would be an example. Like, will the new agent fix op meta? First of all, one, we would have had to know that was happening like months and months and months ago. So no. And two, I do not want to make content solve systems problems or meta problems. Meta problems are temporal in nature. Metas exist and they come and go. Balance changes, systems changes, players change, and things change. Making content based on a temporary state of the game, I think is extremely short-sighted and not a good solution. Now, if you're talking about something like, this is very different than, here's a problem, Sage being the only one who has access to other healing, that's something we'd want to have more of in the roster, but that's not a problem where we're in the healing meta and we need to fix healing by making an anti-heal guy. That would be kind of the thing I'm talking about here, you know?
So just don't be expecting an agent immune to ops anytime soon. Now before we move on to any other topics, you have to hear this regarding the competitive side of Valorant.
Who can we talk to about the rank system? Sadly, Mark, nobody right now. I know that sucks. So I'm going to be real with y'all. The person who worked on the rank system from a design standpoint has left the company. Nobody owns the rank system right now. This is a huge problem. We're trying to figure out how to resolve that right now, and the design team's talking about it.
So essentially, we might be seeing a ton of changes coming to the ranked mode, and one feature I can't wait to see if they add is more ways to view progression in your own rank. So some sort of number that goes up and down determined by how you play. Even though changes to the ranked system might be nice, it doesn't look like their top priority. So you might be asking, what's next then? And Morello's already got you covered.
Character-wise, Viper and Breach being buffed are two, like, they're not on watch. We're like, we need to buff them. What are we doing? We're testing stuff now. And on Nerf side, I think Raze needs a little bit. I know, right? And I also think addressing some of the problems that I think have legitimately been brought up with the rocket and some of the weird play patterns with the satchel. Movement is fine. You guys can keep your cool zoomer movement. It's too fun. I'm not going to fun police that, even though my original instinct was to. We're not going to. But I think doing some work on the rocket to both make it have some more counterplay, but still be a high impact kill moment is something we want to do, and bring her win rate down a little bit. And then Sage needs pretty big work. Sage still is really out of control.
Those are all the changes that you can expect in the near future of Valorant. So which one are you most excited about? For me, I think that the changes being made to Viper will be very interesting. I don't know how they can fix her low pick rate, but I can't wait to see it happen. Now, during all of our news roundup videos, it feels like we always hear from Morello, but today we get even more developer inside information with the Ask Valorant news article. With these articles, Riot takes your most asked questions and answers them. So let's go ahead and get right into this week's most asked questions, starting with gifting. Currently, we are halfway through the month of July, and it's never too early to start planning for the holidays. And you already know that Riot has taken this mindset and confirmed that there will indeed be gifting coming to Valorant. So maybe this year, instead of your everyday present, you can get a sick Phantom skin. This feature is set to come into the game by the end of 2020, but this is subject to change. Another feature that was confirmed in this article is an in-game replay system. We have all had those times where we popped off in a game and wished that we had some way to share it with our friends, and now it looks like we will finally be able to do this. The sad thing is that we currently don't have a set time frame, so we'll just have to wait patiently for more news on this. And another topic that really goes well with the replay system is the observer mode. This is what Riot had to say on the matter. We know the esports observer tool currently in Valorant is a little bare bones, but it's something that we'll be building together in the coming while. We're taking notes from each set of Ignition Series tournaments happening every weekend and getting active input from organizers, spectators, and audience members so we make sure we prioritize the right tools. They went on to talk about how we can even expect unique features from the observer mode to stand out from other esports. I can't wait to see how all this pans out and if Riot can end up building Valorant as one of the big dogs of esports. Now, to wrap up this section of the news, the devs let us know how often players are seeing that Radiant rank next to their name. In the article, they said that anywhere from 20 to 150 players from each region are given the rank depending on the size of the population. This means that in order to receive the highest rank, you have to be the best of the best. And sometimes, in order to do this, you are going to have to perform some sort of lineup. This could be for all the future Viper players after she's buffed, or the Sova players trying to gain intel for their team. No matter what type of lineup you're performing, it might help to have all your Valorant settings on high, because this allows for more textures to show up, which will help learn those pixel perfect lineups. Here, take a look. When on low, we can't actually see the clothing hanging down, but as soon as we turn the settings on high, the clothes show up. It's really interesting that the arrow doesn't go through the invisible clothes, so if this has ever happened to you in the past, this might be the reason. Well, that's going to go ahead and wrap up the Valorant news for this week. We will be back with more news next Sunday, but if you want to be the first to know all the interesting leaks and changes, then be sure to subscribe with notifications on. Thank you so much for watching all the way through this video. We will see you all in the next one.